Tea in the sky.
It's okay. So I posted the poll and I asked everybody like what would you like to talk about next? And this was the highest vote on the poll. So this is why we will be discussing divination, communication with your spirit guides. And I expected this to be the top one simply because the climate that we're in now is extremely unstable, to say the least, on every level. And it's really focusing, helping us to focus on the inner work. Because when the outer is just out of control, and it's like nothing that you can do about it immediately to change it. But what you can control is the way you're processing what's showing up in the world and in your reality. And so for me, connecting with spirit was the beginning of me noticing that I create reality by the thoughts, beliefs, and habits that I repeat. And I was living unconsciously. I was making decisions without really fully feeling them out. I wasn't listening to my inner self. For a really long time, I had a hard time being able to differentiate between my inner self and my ego. And the ego is real smooth. So the ego tell you to do something, you're like, yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's how I've always responded to this. The ego doesn't change. The ego is unchanging. The only part of us that is changing is the spiritual aspect of who we are. But it's ultimately who we are from the very beginning. We just forget when we are born on planet Earth. This is Earth school. So it wouldn't be fair if we all remember everything. And I saw a contract before we came here. So it's really interesting that more people are being drawn to spirit because of the climate that we're in now, which is one of the gifts of going through this pandemic situation. And so I believe that we are finding a lot of other coping mechanisms and habits that we had that once soothed us. They don't work anymore. And that can be frustrated and uncomfortable. As you are going through the awakening, you want to get in touch with the parts of yourself that hide from the world because of trauma and shame and guilt. And what happens is the trust inside of you towards yourself begins to collapse in where if you have a difficulty ruminating in your mind about things that you feel you did wrong and should have done different, well, what happens that creates a frequency around you of, I don't trust myself. I'm constantly thinking about this because I don't trust myself for this to be okay. And it happens to everybody. I believe it happens to everybody. I believe the power is in the way we respond to it when it happens. You're not gonna, I don't perceive us being able to live in this world where the spiritual veil has been pulled down and so many illusions are being destroyed. You can't navigate that without connecting to the innermost self. So that's the beauty of what's happening now. And I'm noticing I got a few friends who um, are practicing different forms of religion and they're asking questions about lucid dreams and, how do you meditate and what are chakras? And so it's just really beautiful to see the age of Aquarius awaken us as a collective. But it's definitely uncomfortable. So that's what I'm going to be beginning with. Um, and then, if you have some questions, if you end up catching the replay, that's cool too, because we're going to make sure we have the replay and I will be responding to any questions. Just drop in the comments if you tend to catch the show after. But before I get started, I do want to ask, Indigo, did you, prior to your awakening, like on this level, that you have experiences where you knew, like, I'm not from this world, like, I'm different?
Honestly, I always just felt different, a bit outcasted, but that's pretty much about it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was like that for me too. I actually felt like I got dropped in on a planet Like I really knew that I should have had a spaceship. Like from, from very small, like it was just this feeling like I'm not from here. Oh my gosh, who are these people? These people are what is wrong with these people? And just I remember going to kindergarten and just seeing how mean kids were to each other. And like that was some of my first experiences with feeling the spiritual resistance against the frequency of love. Because how are 5-year-olds already developing the habit of doing things to hurt each other? And it's something that satisfies them about it. Like, where does that come from? So for me, I was super aware as a kid. And but typically the kids who were empathic and aware and had this spiritual sense inside of them, whether they could explain it or not, we were energetically more sensitive to bullying and things like that. So it's really interesting how when you look back, you realize some of the negative things that you experienced was just to give you a measure of how not of this world that you are, and how you are a powerful being capable of reading energy. That's a super power, to be able to pick up on energy, especially right now. So maybe when we were younger, it didn't feel like a superpower to be able to pick up on energy. But now, before we even get started, I just want to encourage you and tell you, if you're starting to pick up on vibes, like really, really easy, then that's beautiful, because you are the one that has been chosen to awaken. And healing is feeling. So, the paradigm shift is happening is from us feeling, and we feel things so more intensely now than we did before. And I do believe, the amount of people that are dying and losing their lives, like it's kind of helping us to put our life in perspective of, life is so short. Like, I don't want to waste this. Like, I want to make sure that the next steps that I take is moving me in a direction that spirit is driving me to go, because it's where I belong. And so, because I grew up with a lot of seeing a lot of that, I also grew up in the height of the crack epidemic. Like, I was in the middle of fights and shootouts. Like, that was just a day in the neighborhood. And and so I developed these psychic shields that I would use to protect myself. And thinking back, everything that I've been learning now, I actually already knew was already a part of me. I just wasn't able to really make the connections. So, what we're going to be talking about, I want to share with you one of the first things that you can start doing to help you to be able to focus on the eagle eye perspective of what's happening, because our five senses has been spell cast into not being able to see past our wounds. But it is the third eye and the feeling in the heart that helps you to read energy. So the 3D matrix is not, it's not supportive of people who want to co-create a reality that's opposite of what the mass is doing, but it only takes a few of us. And, so by you pulling away from the hive mind and allowing other people's, I wrote this earlier and it really touched me, and I'm gonna read this to you all. It says we have to be careful to avoid basing our standards on others' expectations. And I feel like the suffering that we sometimes feel, and the isolation and the pain from not having these healthy relationships established already, it's a lot of that is okay, but what standards am I holding myself to that are unrealistic? And especially in society as a woman, it's just unrealistic what wives have been expected to do. Like, that's some superhero stuff. To be able to manage a home, manage a job, manage a family, be the nurse, be the doctor, be the healer, be the cook, do the inventory, always know how much food is here and not here, being able to meal prep ahead of time, take care of yourself too. Like, it's a lot. And that's the average wife. Like, that's what's expected of her. But the spirit that created these expectations of the 3D matrix purpose is to drain life force energy. Now we are starting to feel the impact of whatever thoughts we've been thinking in repetition, and that's what's showing up. And when that starts to happen, that's the time where you are being initiated into embodying a future version of yourself and communing with spirit before you make any decisions. That's a place of surrender. That's a place of, you know what, I think I'm going to have to trust the process. I can't micromanage this anymore. And a lot of us are exhausted because we try to micromanage our thoughts. And that's going, we have what, 80,000 thoughts a day, most neuroscientists in the reports that I have read. So that's a lot of thoughts to try to, I can't even imagine doing that in my phone every day. Going through 80,000 emails every day. Like, please, somebody hit me in the head and knock me out. Please. So the only way that you are able to do that is by creating stronger intuition. And so I'm going to share some of the practices that I use to help my intuition continue to grow. The next thing that I wanted to mention about intuition is if you had supernatural experiences as a kid as well, this was a sign that you were put here to be a spiritual current of energy, to be the 5D tower in which these spiritual unfoldings, that's why we go through so many different things, because we know that we have been equipped to overcome them. No matter what you've been through in the past, it don't matter what it is. If you can think back and remember supernatural experiences, then you can trust that they are still with you now. And the more aware you are of the divine protection that walks with you, the more present they can be in assisting you in making decisions. So it's a two-way relationship. And there is a level of surrender that you also have to have when you're working with these different spiritual currents. So a lot of us had experiences. I know some of us can relate to having car accidents and knowing it should have been way worse than what it was. And it wasn't as bad as it should have been. I had a car accident and I could feel hands holding me in the seat so I didn't go through the windshield. You know, those experiences, you know, if they come back to you and that moment is triggered, like milk that moment, because that's a moment that reflects your mind is beginning to align the crown chakra. This is the energy vortex that opens to receive spiritual energy. It's coming back to you and you're not forcing it, it's just flowing in. And so you may have some memories and you like, you know what, I've been worrying about a lot of stuff lately and stressing over things, but I do remember times where I didn't think that I would make it, or I didn't know, you know, what would happen next. And I somehow was protected, or I somehow always came out of it. I rose above it. I somehow always survived. It's so imperative for us to go back and think those thoughts in repetition throughout the day, thinking positive thoughts about experiences of you being supported. Because trust me, I know everybody working on their trauma right now, some more than others, and there are many different depths to doing this work. But we're noticing we can't really be codependent and depend on people anymore, right? People with the pandemic happening, it seems like people are more fickle. You know, you can't, and it was bothering me. And I was like, why do I feel like I can't depend on people? I feel like people can depend on me, but I can't depend on them. And my spirit guides was very clear about this. They were just like, because you wanted to be able to be sovereign. And if everybody around you is dependable and always supporting you, you don't have the opportunity to notice that sovereignty is being offered to you, where what you're doing no longer is going to be based on other people's expectations. And so we project those expectations onto one another. And that's literally the definition of codependency, where we're not okay unless certain people are okay. and we're being unplugged from that. So this is how spirit is taking us through another spiritual initiation as a collective. And this is why learning divination and actually using it, like you have to practice this to reprogram your mind to know that you not only create the negative things in your life, but you create the positive as well. Co-creating with spirit in this space helped to relieve anxiety and so much fear. I haven't had a panic attack and I don't know when, but I used to have them all the time. And I know now that I have complex PTSD from my childhood, but the panic attacks, I couldn't really connect to why what was triggering that. And there was just this deep fear inside of me of not meeting expectations. And as a young mom, I felt like I didn't have any more strikes to make. I felt pressured to be perfect. And it was just a lot of stress. And spirit ultimately was what got me to this place now, where I walked away from jobs. I walked away from going to college to do this. That's how much this meant to me. So yeah, so spirit may be directing you to reflect back so that you are prepared for what's in front of you, because opportunities open when you do this work consistently. I also had experiences throughout life of having dreams about stuff happening before it happened. And I didn't consider it divination because I didn't think that I was in control of the dream in the first place. But that's also a form of divination that a lot of people, even myself, didn't really appreciate. And a lot of times, sometimes you can have a dream that somebody you in a relationship with cheating on you. It's a good example. And intuition will tell you as soon as you wake up, you can just feel it, like, don't ignore that. But the head, just to help us identify, because spirit doesn't speak through the head. Okay. The mind collects the data. And based on what we think about the most, influences the synapses that fire and wire thinking habits. It turn into thinking habits, right? So spirit doesn't speak through the mind. The mind contains the information that spirit will use to translate something to you from the spirit realm and break it down to the physical where we can process it. But the heart is the throne of God. It's the throne of God. It's the throne where your higher self sits. So for so many of us, early in life, we had our heart broken, like as children. And it could have been a small trauma, maybe not spending time, having a emotional connection with one of your parents, maybe a sibling being treated better than you. Like the first 7 years, we are in theta state. So we are recording data from our environment at the speed of light. And the mind is a quantum computer. So we develop that conditioning, may or may not be traumas that you remember, but it still affects you and the subconscious patterns. The interesting thing for me was the more I did this work, the more I started to have these dreams, and I noticed the correlation. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I do have control over my dreams. I may not be able to specifically dial it in on the specific subject, but what you can do before you go to sleep to start practicing developing intuition during your sleep state, since you are less inhibited in sleep state. We are traveling many different realms in sleep state, in the astral. And so what happens is right before you go to sleep and shut down, and this is so, so important. There's a period when we're getting ready to fall asleep where we're back in that theta state. And in that state, we are much more, our absorption is much higher to retain information and for the information to actually seep into the subconscious mind and reprogram some of the programs that we have been releasing. Okay. So right before you fall asleep, what you can do is set the intention of what you want to work through. So maybe you've been feeling the it's funny because I definitely been dealing with this a lot, but you feel this drive to do something new or different, but you also have this feeling of it might not be the best situation, or this might not be the best time, or you might even catastrophize about it and like, well, if I do this, this might happen. And you know, and you ain't made not one step to do anything, but you already have a program in your mind telling you that to not trust yourself to do whatever this thing is you want to do, or that you're not going to be good enough at it, or you always start stuff and don't finish it. Like, this is the mind. The mind is like a gnat sometimes, and you're just trying to enjoy your strawberries. And so it's just, think about it though. If you're at war with your mind, well, you're not able to really feel. So right before you go into sleep, you're in theta state. So this is the moment right here. And I do this every single night. And I'm so grateful for the challenges, the surgeries, the near-death experience. I feel physical bone pain and organ pain almost every day of my life. And what allows me to focus on spirit and what matters, and it is a responsibility to actually pay attention. And I mean, you commit, and I committed to this journey. So I never have an excuse to not do this practice that I'm sharing with you to help you connect stronger with your intuition, help you to connect with more spirit guides, especially while you are dreaming, and to be able to program yourself to be the person you want to be moving ahead. So before you fall asleep, invoke your name 7 times. Whatever resonates for you. If your government name don't resonate for you, don't use it. If you got a nickname, just shoot whatever name has resonance inside of you and it feels good. You say that name 7 times. 7 is the number of creation. 7 is the number that represents the completion of a spiritual journey, a process. So you're already programming your mind to think positive about a day that hasn't come yet, just by invoking your own name with your essence. You're calling back your own power. So you do this and you take some slow, deep breaths, because you want the breath to support um, the invoking of your I divine self. And this is going to help to calm the nervous system. So I call my name, White Galactic Wizard. You are at peace. And this sound crazy when I first started, because I was just like, I'm a wizard. Like this shit, it was blowing my mind. And I would just be laughing, laying in the bed at myself with myself. It was just so funny how when channels open up to spirit, you have emotions you're not expecting to have. So I would just bust out laughing and be like, oh my goodness, like, if when I was singing gospel songs, I would have known that this would have been my spiritual practice to calm my mind before sleep. Just so crazy. So yeah, you can actually, second, where my baby at? There you go. Okay. You can actually learn your galactic signature. If you don't know your galactic signature, I'm going to let you know how you can learn that. And I'm going to drop the link here so that you can get into the course and learn about that. If you don't know it, just stick with your name. That's fine. Do the slow, deep breaths. Do at least 4 slow, deep breaths. Okay. Don't fill your lungs up, because a lot of us are easily triggered to go into fight and flight now. Again, we're highly empathic, intuitive people. Some of us are a lot more psychic than we knew we were, and we're really, really, really starting to feel energy more intensely. So this is beyond whether or not you are aware if you are something, okay? But we all have a spiritual mission and spiritual gifts. The fight or flight blocks the energy of spirit to communicate with you. So this is the purpose in you filling your belly with the breath and your lower lungs, the lower lobes of your lungs. Just visualize feeling that, like water of a tide coming in the tide going back out. And so I do that a few times. And as I begin to slow down my breath, my thoughts start to slow down. And I'm still having them come through. If you have some thoughts that come through, just put a pin. Just say, okay, I'll get back to that. But complete your 7 calling of your name, complete that 7 times. And before you go into meditation, if something come through like you forgot to, pay a bill, or you forgot to make the kids dentist appointment or whatever, like just jot it down. Just reach over on a nightstand. It's what I do. I write it down because some of the thoughts that come up are important. And I thank my brain. Thank you for reminding me of that. Because if you're at war with your brain for it doing just what it's been programmed to do, this creates more resistance inside of you, which will also block communication with your spirit guides, your divine self, your ancestors, any spiritual communication. This will slow it down or block it. It'll come to a halt. Okay. So the goal is to be non-judgmental of the thoughts, but write down the ones that are actually important and give gratitude and say thank you that your mind can process information that way. That's beautiful. It can get frustrating, but let's focus on how beautiful our ability is to do these things. Because the 3D matrix is a projection that's based on the energetic frequency we're in. And as a collective, we create what's happening in the world. And some of us are just more unconscious than others, but we're always co-creating something. Okay. Now, the next thing that was like make or break, took me to the next level, was connecting to my inner child first. I had absolutely no idea that my inner child had the hookup to the spirit realm like that. Like, it was so crazy. So in the beginning, my inner child, I would do meditations. My inner child would not come to me. I felt so bad. Like for a while, I was hard on myself. I would do the meditation and she would just sit there and just look at me and she would just ignore me. That went on for a while and I started asking my divine self, like, why is my inner child ignoring me? And my divine self was just saying, like, well, um, if you're not going to consistently show up, regardless of how she responds, well, you're doing the exact same thing that other people did in your life as a kid. They didn't fully see you and hear you. So if you show up and it's like, I'm expecting my inner child, you need to do what I want you to do now. I'm doing this meditation now. I said I was going to do this every day and I only did it one time in the last 4 months, but your ass better show up when I try to connect with you. We might not actually say this, but this be the vibe sometimes. And it's like, my inner child better show up. And so that's the energy that I was in. And my inner child was just like, mm-mm. So I worked on releasing judgment towards myself. I worked on isolating the thoughts when I'm being mean to myself. I worked on putting love in those places with those thoughts. And the more I did that, the more I could feel my inner child in me from day to day. So I could be washing dishes and just get caught up in the bubbles, and I'm just in there playing in bubbles. Like it was just strange. I was just like, what the hell? What is going on with me? I'm in there playing with bubbles, like really having a freaking ball. And I started to laugh and I was like, oh, I'm letting you come through now. And she was like, exactly. So yes, your inner child is literally the channel to connect to spirit.
How do I hold it down when I feel like I want to jump out of the feeling?
Yes. Oh, so deep. So when I get these, I had one of these today. And I did, I leave my body a lot. I disassociate. That's one of my patterns. And this is with shadow work. You start to know when you're in your body and when you're not. It's just like, what? You talk to some people like, yeah, girl, I'm here, but I'm not really here with you. That's the higher self-awareness conversation that we having now. But when I'm feeling that intense emotion and that urge to not be with myself, I remind myself that if I be with myself in that moment, my inner child is watching me be to her what she needed when she had intense moments and when she was going through things and needed somebody to be there. that's my opportunity to reparent myself, to be with those intense emotions, to be with myself. And so oftentimes I'll lay my hand on my heart, um, the left hand, feminine receiving energy. So I'll typically put this one down first. The right hand, masculine energy. These are the currents within your body as well, connecting with the heart. So I would take my masculine hand and use it to protect and cover the feminine part of me. And I do this probably once an hour, honestly, because I really want to clear some things that I know are holding me back. And so I just drop back down into here and I just remind myself that I'm safe. Like, I'm safe. I'm safe. You're safe. And I visualize the inner child. I visualize the younger me. And maybe she's crying in that moment. Or maybe she's just feeling lonely and unloved in that moment. And I let her know, like, I'm going to give all of that to you. So if it's anxiety that I'm feeling, you know, then I calm it by soothing myself, narrating myself as I would have wanted a parent to do for me, to teach me emotional regulation. And I teach myself, but I'm the little girl in me. And I'm like, you're okay. I'm speaking to her, and just visualizing yourself younger and using that simple technique. Just, it can do a lot. Yeah.
That was perfect. I'm feeling a little anxious, so I was speaking some words to myself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're
Oh my
welcome.
goodness. Okay. So how do you balance feeling with the 3D reality things?
Like, such as responsibilities.
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
I'm horrible at it.
You too?
I'm horrible at it. I'm getting better with each passing day. I'm going to speak and say that I've been horrible at it, but I'm improving. The techniques that we talking about actually are helping me to improve. Because what I'm noticing, if I'm getting behind on laundry, or if I'm getting behind on a bill, or if I'm getting behind, maybe I said I was going to fix my credit and I'm so overwhelmed, I don't even feel like requesting the report and reading it over and checking it. I got so much stuff going on in my life. I'm like, I don't even want to see a medical bill. I'm in the state of just keep it away from me. I don't want to deal with it. Sometimes it's conscious like that. I just don't want to deal with it. Sometimes it's very unconscious. I just procrastinate around doing 3D matrix things. And so I asked my I divine self, I want you to make me feel better, but I want you to tell me the truth too. And that's so complicated to do. That's not easy to do, but your I divine self does it with ease. Your inner child does it with ease as well. So I asked, like, I really struggle with procrastination, but like it's really not with the spiritual things and things like that. Like I love that stuff. I'm so intrigued by that. But the 3D matrix stuff, that's so hard. It's so hard sometimes for me to sit and do my taxes. Like those things. Like I want to apply for a business. Some of y'all, you might want to start a business or something, and it's just like I can't even do the first step. Like I just feel overwhelmed and I haven't done anything yet. I'm just thinking about the process and I'm tired. That's a sign that you are not letting spirit lead you. You're in your head, first of all. And second, you're allowing your body, because the cortisol, all of the hormones inside of you are being released in these moments that we do this to ourselves. And so, what has helped me is reminding myself that this may be a form of procrastination, and I may not fully be able to trust and depend on myself to get things done in a timely manner. But I know for sure that spirit will help me because spirit is all about divine timing, and I'm gonna do the best that I can and let spirit help me with the rest. Maybe it's just not time for me to deal with this particular 3D thing. right? So can I just be okay with not being okay all the time and being the perfect? There's no perfect adult. People might have all of their box checked off in the 3D matrix things to do, but their children may not feel connected to them. You know, so everybody got a weak area that they're not keeping up with. But that's just a sign that the 3D matrix is starting to continue to crash. And just we don't enjoy being in the 3D program, doing the 3D stuff. So that's a sign of that as well. Your spirit just letting you know, like, come on, you need to be in this spiritual energy more often. If that's making you feel away, then you need to deposit more spiritual time, energy, and effort into your day so that you're more balanced.
Uh, I think that last part really resonated with me because I even find myself when I wake up, I'll get right to the task because my mind's already going. And then by the time I've gotten done with like, no, by the time I'm like middle first task, I'm already tired. But it's because I haven't given myself the spiritual time to like gain that energy to move myself through it and enjoy myself through it. Because
Yeah,
enjoying it is like, why are we doing the task if we can't even enjoy doing
exactly. Exactly. So the
it? Yeah.
goal is to enjoy it more, to try to at
Mm,
least get there, be open to it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great question. See, I love your questions.
Thank you.
So I'm not looking on YouTube. I don't know if we got anybody in
Yeah,
there
go ahead.
that don't look like we do. It might be just us. I don't know. Let me see. This tech stuff is not my thing. So okay, so before we finish up, I'm gonna go over my last few tips for you being able to. I hope that I hope that so far you learned something new, because if you ain't learning nothing new, or you're being your present beliefs aren't being challenged, for me it's all about illumination. It's all about opening the mind to new possibilities. So the next thing is knowing your soul planet. Knowing your soul planet. That's so important, to know your soul planet. Okay, your soul planet teaches you the the trials and tribulations, the challenges, the hard times that you're going to have in this incarnation based on the previous incarnations and what you did not complete. Okay. And so that soul planet in the course, you will be able to access this information for yourself, and you will be able to find out what your soul planet is, learn what that means. And I'm telling you, this one thing made stuff make so much sense that didn't make sense to me. And I felt peace just knowing like there was a purpose in the pain. There was a purpose in the suffering. It wasn't for nothing. This increases your value. It increases the way you feel. Yeah, you feel more valuable because you know more about yourself. That's how you become high value. It's by knowing yourself. It's nothing outside of you that you attain that makes you a high value person, woman or man. But it's that inner access to that inner power and understanding yourself, that's true power. So that is going to be in the course. I'm actually going to go in and add that tonight if it's not already in there, to make sure, because my guides kept telling me that's important, and a lot of people on the journey don't know these things. Now, the next thing that I want to share with you is using your pendulum more regular. This is my favorite pendulum. I use it every day. If you haven't been using your pendulum, this is the time now for you to start. Spirit communicates through the pendulum really easily. And this is a citrine pendulum. We have tiger's eye. I know sometimes it'll collect dust and you'll find yourself not working with your tools. If you don't have a pendulum, you can order one from our shop. I recommend this because When the mind is in the way and the ego is in the way and you can't really tell the difference between the two, the pendulum is reading the frequency within your environment. So it can't lie to you. Maybe you will get a maybe from it on occasion, but it's going to tell you yes or no, right? If you don't know how to use the pendulum, that's available on our Patreon. For $1 and up, you can the tier, any tier, this class is on there. And I take my time and walk you through how to connect with your pendulum and how to get accurate answers. I use my pendulum. It's so many uses. You can use it for what you eat that day. You could use your pendulum to know if a decision that you're about to make is this on the journey of me becoming a better version of me, or would this decision be something that holds me back? The pendulum is not going to lie to you. It can't. It's energy. It's pure energy. Um, so yes, so using this helps a lot if you are connecting with deities or certain ancestors as well. You can ask your pendulum, like, is my ancestor here with me now while you're doing a prayer or giving an offering? And if it tell you no, like, okay, well, let me make sure that I'm taking care of my altar more often and just building up that connection. And this is everything is a relationship. Everything in this world is meant to be a relationship in which we learn something, or we're learning how to give and receive energy. So these are the things that cause blockages. So be okay with that too, because sometimes I went and burned ancestor money and did petitions, and offered my prayers and asked, like, was this enough? And sometimes my pendulum would say no. So I'm going to burn some more ancestor money. It's humbling as well. It helps you to require less on your logic, right? Your logic, left hemisphere brain, and rely more on the feminine right hemisphere, which is where intuition is housed. There's no other way to access intuition without working with the feminine energy. So the pendulum is like a quick hack to do that. And I don't have conversations. If it is not the best time to have certain intense conversations, I don't. I wait to spirit let me know when I'm being supported to work through a conflict or something with somebody. These things create more peace in your life. It gives you more control of what you can control, and it helps you to focus less on what you cannot.
Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. Royalty in disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. Don't even trip. Empty your clip. Fuck all that shit. Your blood is royal. Rich like the soil. In every trip. Peeping the script. Some people been chipped. Some people go flip over a brick, over a zip. Just get a grip. Loyalty and disguise. Put your fist up in the skies. When you and I, UNITY. We your force, better recognize.